Blake Donovan, that smug CEO, slid termination papers across the mahogany, shattering my 18 years of work. My blood ran cold, but a silent vow formed. They had no idea the storm they'd just unleashed. 18 years. Nearly 2 decades, just gone. Walking out of that sleek, impersonal Ironvale lobby, Blake Donovan's smarmy, dismissive face was seared into my mind. Legacy systems, he'd called my work. My asterisk life's asterisk work. The city noise, the honking taxis, the distant wail of a siren, it all felt muffled, like I was underwater, the pressure building in my chest. Ironville. It wasn't just a job, it was practically a child I'd nurtured from its infancy. I remembered the early days crammed into a tiny office with peeling paint, fueled by lukewarm coffee and a shared dream. Robert Miller, the original founder, a good man, he believed in me, seen something in the raw code I was sketching out even then. We toiled side by side, building something from nothing. My God, the hours I poured into that place. Countless nights, the city lights outside my window blurring into a sunrise I barely registered. My wife Sarah, bless her patient soul. How many times had I called to say I'd be late? Again. The system's a bit wobbly, honey, just need to tweak this one last thing. One last thing that always turned into another and another. I could still see my daughter Lily's face, small and crestfallen, when I missed her 3rd grade ballet recital. Daddy, you promised. Her little voice echoed in my memory, a painful pang of guilt that never quite faded. Birthdays celebrated with a hurried slice of cake at my desk, anniversaries marked by a take-up meal eaten hours after Sarah had gone to bed. It'll be worth it, I told myself. I'm building our future. And for a while it was. Ironvale grew, thrived, became a name, all running on the intricate architecture **I** had designed, the digital heart *** had given it. Those polished suits, with their MBAs and their arrogant smirks, they paraded through the company after Robert sold it, never once bothering to look beyond the quarterly reports. They saw profits, assets, liabilities. They never saw the soul of it. They certainly never bothered with any real due diligence, the kind that digs deep. If they had, they would have found something. Something rather important. You see, that foundational algorithm, the very bedrock of Ironvale's entire platform, the secret sauce that made it all hum, that wasn't theirs. Oh no. That elegant piece of code, the one I'd sweated over for months in my cramped home office, long before Ironvale even had a proper name, fueled by instant ramen and an obsessive vision that was mine. Conceived on my own time, on my own dime, a labor of love and intellectual curiosity. I'd copyrighted it every last line, in my name, years before I ever signed an employment contract with Ironvale. I'd simply licensed it to the company. A detail, a tiny little detail, buried in the archives, that Blake Donovan and his team of corporate sharks had, in their infinite wisdom, completely overlooked. A small, cold smile touched my lips as I walked away from that glass tower. Legacy systems, he'd said. He had no idea. They had no idea the true legacy they were about to confront. They thought they'd cut out the old wood. They were about to find out they'd just sawed off the branch they were sitting on. It took a mere 3 days. 3 short days. For their vaunted fresh perspective to plunge Ironvale into a full-blown, lights-out, catastrophic meltdown. I'd spent those first couple of days in a sort of numb limbo, the silence from my old office deafening. Sarah watched me, her brow furrowed with the gentle concern that I knew mirrored my own internal storm. Then, on that 3rd morning, as I was staring into a cup of coffee that tasted like ash, my phone, which had been mercifully quiet, suddenly exploded into life. It started with a hesitant text from Kevin, a bright kid, a junior engineer I'd mentored. Ethan, so sorry to bother you, man, but things are, well, they're going haywire. The main server array is spitting out errors none of us have ever seen before, like asterisk over asterisk. An hour later, Kevin's haywire had escalated to what sounded like the digital apocalypse. And that's when the real symphony began. My phone screen blazed to life, illuminating a name I never thought I'd derive such savage pleasure from ignoring, Blake Donovan. The first call, I just watched it vibrate on the worn oak of our kitchen table, a grim, humorless smirk twitching at the corner of my mouth. Straight to voicemail. 5 minutes later, it rang again. Then again and again, each incoming call a fresh jolt of something dark and satisfying. When he finally left a message, his voice, usually so slick and marinated in arrogance, was a raw, shredded thing. Ethan, for God's sake, pick up, it's an emergency. The entire system is down, completely offline. Call me back, now, The desperation practically oozed through the speaker, thick and cloying. It was, I had to admit, almost beautiful. I let it ring. Each unanswered summons was like a small, perfectly placed drop of acid on his condescending facade. Legacy systems, he'd sneered. Well, his brilliant fresh perspective, the one helmed by the MBA whiz kid who probably thought a mainframe was a type of window, had managed to torch my 18 years of meticulous construction in less time than it takes to get over a bad head cold. 72 hours. The irony was so rich, so potent, it was almost a physical thing. Sarah found me later, standing by the living room window, my phone still buzzing a frantic rhythm on the sill, a tight, almost predatory smile on my face as I watched the city lights blur. She didn't say a word. Just came up behind me, squeezed my shoulder. A silent acknowledgement. She'd lived through every late night, every missed dinner, every ounce of soul I'd poured into their company. She knew what they tried to discard. And now she knew they were choking on it. The voicemails became a torrent. Donovan's tone cycled through the stages of grief, panic, denial, bargaining. Oh, the bargaining. That's when the sheer, unadulterated gall of the man truly shone. Ethan, listen up, we need to talk, one particularly pathetic message began. We're prepared to offer you a very generous consulting fee. Generous, name your price. Ethan, just come in, fix this. Asterisk, please asterisk, we need you. My price? A bitter, choke laugh clawed its way up my throat. My price was 18 years of my life. It was Lily's tear-streaked face at that ballet recital I'd missed, her small voice whispering, you promised, Daddy. It was the countless one last things that had stolen me from my family. Could Blake Donovan slap a dollar amount on asterisk that asterisk? Could his quarterly reports quantify the sheer, bloody-minded dedication I'd invested, only for him to treat it like a dusty relic? No, Mr. Donovan. You couldn't afford my price if you liquidated every asset Ironvale owned. When the desperate pleas and insulting offers clearly weren't working, they did what all cornered corporate billers do. They tried to intimidate me. A crisp, formal email, flagged with more urgent red exclamation points than a 5-alarm fire, landed in my inbox. Subject line, urgent breach of post-employment obligations and potential misappropriation of intellectual property. Oh, it was a masterpiece of legalistic venom, dripping with veiled threats about non-compete clauses I hadn't breached and dark mutterings about proprietary code they so clearly didn't understand was never, ever theirs to begin with. They were trying to strong-arm me, to scare me back into the fold to clean up their asterisk cataclysmic mess. For a heartbeat, just one, a sliver of old fear tried to find purchase. These were heavy hitters, with a legal team that probably billed by the second. I just stepped forward and sent it to Susan, my lawyer. She's a bulldog in a sensible suit, someone I'd consulted years ago, on a hunch, to make sure my copyright on that foundational algorithm was utterly untouchable. Her reply came back in under an hour. 2 beautiful, glorious words, let them. I called her immediately. Susan, you saw that love letter from Ironvale? I could practically hear her sharp, delighted grin through the phone. Oh, I saw it, Ethan. It's adorable, isn't it? They're like overtired toddlers who've smashed their favorite toy and are now trying to blame the guy who designed it in the first place. Her chuckle was dry, confident, and it vaporized that last lingering wisp of doubt. They haven't got a prayer. That licensing agreement you have for your algorithm, it's a fortress. You licensed it to Ironvale, the asterisk original asterisk entity. Their due diligence, if they even bothered with any real digging, was a complete joke. They're operating on asterisk your asterisk licensed technology, Ethan. And frankly, by firing you and then spectacularly detonating the whole thing, asterisk the ones skating on very thin ice, contractually speaking. Let them send their threatening little missives. They're just digging their own graves deeper with every keystroke. Her words weren't just reassuring, they were empowering. That grim satisfaction I'd been nursing, it ignited, transforming into something hotter, fiercer, something that tasted astonishingly like justice. The chaos I'd been imagining erupting within those gleaming glass walls of Ironvale Tower, it wasn't just in my head. It was real. It was palpable. And no, it was only just getting started. They had no idea what was coming. No idea at all. The news about Ironvale wasn't just office gossip anymore, it was screaming from every business headline, a digital wildfire devouring their reputation. Ironvale stock plummets amidst catastrophic system failure, one blared from my tablet. Clients flee sinking tech giant, shrieked another from the TV Sarah had muted, but the Charon told the whole horrifying story. Each notification felt like a fresh jab, not of pain, no, this was a dark, almost illicit thrill, watching their ivory tower crumble brick by digital brick. Sarah would just glance at the headlines, her hand finding mine, a silence crease that said everything, asterisk they're finally getting what they deserve. Asterisk. Blake Donovan. Oh, poor pitiful Blake. His increasingly unhinged emails, with subject lines like Ethan urgent for the love of God and a terrible misunderstanding, let's talk now, had become collector's items in my inbox. Then came the ultimate humiliation for a man whose ego probably had its own zip code. He actually showed up on my doorstep. Rain-soaked, his usually pristine $1,000 suit looking like he'd wrestled a badger in a puddle, his hair plastered to his forehead in pathetic strands. He looked small, utterly defeated. A far cry from the titan of industry who'd smirked while tearing my career apart. Ethan, he'd crooked, his voice raspy, his eyes bloodshot and darting around like trapped animals. You asterisk to help, please. They're talking about my job. The board, they're going to crucify me. The arrogance, that signature slickness, was completely gone, stripped away to reveal the terrified, incompetent weasel underneath. I just looked at him, standing there on my porch, the man who'd dismissed my life's work, my asterisk soul's work asterisk, with a condescending flick of his wrist. My silence was a wall, thick and impenetrable, a wall he couldn't breach with his pleas. "Name your price," he finally whispered, the words almost lost in the miserable drizzle. "Anything. I'll get them to agree to anything." "My price?" A bitter, humorless laugh almost escaped me. "The price, Blake," I said, my voice dangerously quiet, each word dropping like a chip of ice, "is something you could never, ever afford. It's not about money. It never was, for me." I remember the flicker of utter absolute incomprehension in his eyes before I slowly, deliberately closed the door in his face. The solid, definitive asterisk click asterisk of the latch was one of the most deeply satisfying sounds I'd ever heard in my entire life. The real bombshell, though, the one that changed everything, dropped 2 days later. It was day 7 of their self-inflicted meltdown. My phone rang, an unfamiliar number. "Ethan, it's Robert Miller." Robert Miller. The original founder of Ironvale. The man who'd reluctantly sold his baby years ago, the one whose brilliant, foundational vision I tried so hard to protect from corporate cretins like Donovan. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. "Robert," I managed, my voice suddenly hoarse, thick with surprise. "Ethan," he said, his voice older, gravelly, but with an undercurrent of sharp, familiar steel I remembered well. "I've been watching this demolition derby they're staging. Appalling. Utterly appalling, but perhaps opportune." He paused, and I could almost hear the ghost of a wry smile in his voice. "When I sold Ironvale, Ethan, I wasn't a complete fool, Sam. There was a clause, buried deep in the fine print, something their high-priced lawyers clearly missed in their rush, a buyback option triggered if the core proprietary technology asterisk technology, Ethan, the one they so spectacularly failed to understand, suffers a critical, unrecoverable failure for 10 consecutive business days. 10 days. My mind raced, synapses firing wildly. They were already on day 7. The world seemed to slow down, the sound of the rain outside fading to a dull hum. A forgotten clause. A lifeline. No, not a lifeline. A goddamn nuclear option. "Robert, are you serious? The buyback clause?" "I had a heart attack. Ethan, they have until Friday, 5 p. and close of business. If that system isn't fully operational, Ironvale can be ours again, for us on Sun, considering its current rather public predicament." His voice was laced with a grim, almost gleeful satisfaction. "They're bleeding out, Ethan. Stocks in the toilet. Clients are jumping ship like rats from a burning freighter. The vultures are circling asterisk the masters now. They'll be desperate." The next 3 days were a blur of tension, so thick you could practically chew it. Day 8, then day 9, the news for Ironvale got progressively worse, which, paradoxically, meant it was getting better and better for us. Reports surfaced, splashed across all the financial news sites. Blake Donovan had been unceremoniously booted, thrown under the bus by a panicked board desperately trying to staunch the bleeding and save their own skins. Good riddance. But the system, my asterisk system, was still smouldering ruin. Their fresh perspective whiz kids were clearly out of their depth, flailing uselessly, probably blaming the janitorial staff by now. My own ghost whispered in the lengthening shadows. Asterisk 18 years, Ethan. 18 years they tried to erase, to call legacy and obsolete. Asterisk Lily's disappointed little face at that Miss School play flashed in my mind, but he promised, Daddy, just one of countless precious family moments laid on the altar of Ironvale. The endless nights fueled by stale coffee, the cold dinners Sarah had patiently kept warm, her tired but loving smile. This wasn't just about code and servers, it was about reclaiming a part of my soul they tried to steal and discard like yesterday's trash. The anger, cold and hard and righteous, settled deep in my gut, a core of icy, unwavering resolve. Friday. Day 10. D-Day. The deadline loomed, 5 p.m. EST. Robert and I were in Susan's sleek, minimalist conference room, the air crackling with an almost unbearable anticipation. Susan, a bulldog lawyer, was on the phone with the Ironvale board's lead counsel, her voice calm, smooth, almost predatory. "Yes, we understand the implications perfectly," she purred into the receiver, a shark circling its prey. "And yes, Mr. Miller is formally exercising his option. The documents are prepared and ready for signature." My stomach was a churning knot of pure, unadulterated adrenaline. Could this really be happening? The sheer, breathtaking audacity of it. All those years of dedication, of passion, dismissed and spat upon, and now we were about to snatch it all back from the very ashes of their monumental arrogance. The minutes on the wall clock crawled by with agonizing slowness. 4:50. 4:55. We heard through back channels that the Ironvale board was scrambling, locked in some frantic, last-ditch emergency meeting, lawyers screaming at each other, trying to find some loophole, some obscure sub-clause, some way out. But Robert's foresight had been impeccable. The clause was ironclad. My algorithm my work was the linchpin, and they had broken it beyond their ability to repair in time. 4:59. My breath hitched in my throat. Sarah, who'd insisted on being there, squeezed my hands so tight I thought my bones would crack. Susan listened intently to the voice on the other end of the line, then a slow, deeply satisfied smile spread across her face. She nodded at us, a single, triumphant dip of her chin. "They've caved," she mouthed silently, before speaking with crisp, professional finality into the phone. "Excellent. We'll expect the signed transfer documents by secure courier within the hour." She hung up. The silence in the room was deafening for a beat, then Robert let out a whoop that belied his 70-odd years. He clapped me on the back, hard, his eyes shining with a fierce, brilliant light. "We did it, Ethan, by God, we actually did it, we got it back." Ironville. Asterisk my asterisk Ironville. Not the hollowed out, soulless shell Blake Donovan and his corporate raiders had tried to make it, but the heart of it, the intricate soul I poured my life into. It was coming home. A wave of something fierce and overwhelmingly triumphant washed over me, so potent it almost buckled my knees. The rage, the bitterness, it didn't vanish, not entirely, but it transformed, forged in that crucible of crisis into a steely, unshakable resolve. This wasn't just revenge. This was reclamation. This was righteous, hard-won justice. And it tasted sweeter, far sweeter than I could have ever dared to imagine. The champagne Susan had produced, something celebratory and absurdly expensive, sat mostly untouched between us. The initial explosive high of victory was starting to settle into a kind of stunned reality. We'd done it. Iron Vale was ours. But as I looked at Robert, the elation in his eyes was now overlaid with something harder. More calculating. "Ethan," he began, his voice dropping low, even though it was just us and Sir in his restored, modest office a far cry from the glass and chrome monstrosity Donovan had favoured. "This windnet's bigger than just sticking it to Blake Donovan, as satisfying as it was." He leaned forward, his gaze intense. Donovan was just the pretty face, the mouthpiece, a highly paid, utterly disposable puppet. A chill snaked down my spine, colder than any anger I'd felt towards Blake. "What are you saying, Robert?" "I'm saying," he said, his words hitting me with the force of a physical blow, that your termination, the legacy system's excuse that was just that one, the real play here was a classic corporate raid, son, executed by Stonebridge Capital, the private equity vultures who bought controlling interest just before Donovan was installed. Stonebridge Capital. The name was vaguely familiar, one of those massive, shadowy firms that swallowed companies whole and spat out the bones. My mind recoiled. Suddenly, the aggressive, almost frantic pace of Donovan's restructuring made a sickening kind of sense. The way they'd been so quick to dismiss viable, profitable divisions, the nonsensical changes that seemed geared more towards rapid disassembly than actual improvement. They weren't trying to fix Ironvale, Ethan. Robert continued, his voice like gravel. They were prepping it for slaughter. Sell off the IP, got the valuable assets, load it with debt, then bankrupt the shell. Your department, your core system, that was the heart. They needed to rip it out first to stop the bleeding while they amputated the lens. You were just collateral damage in a much larger, colder game. The air rushed out of my lungs. All this time, I'd pictured Blake Donovan as the villain, the architect of my pain. But he was just a tool. A very sharp, very cruel tool, yes, but a tool nonetheless. The real enemy was a faceless hider, a Wall Street behemoth that saw companies, saw lives as nothing more than entries on a spreadsheet, ripe for plunder. A cold fury, different from the personal vendetta I'd harbored, began to burn in my chest. This wasn't just about my work anymore. This was about the soul of a company, about the people who depended on it. Sarah's hand found mine again, her grip tight, grounding. She'd seen the shift in my eyes, the dawning horror. "They thought we were finished," Robert said, that grim smile touching his lips. "They figured once they had Yairut, and the system modernized, meaning crippled, they could move in for the kill. They never counted on my little 10-day clause being a kill switch for their Asterisk plans." He paused, then his smile widened, genuinely this time. "And they definitely didn't count on me having a conversation with Dan Chen over at Meridian Systems last week." Diane Chen, CEO of Meridian. A legend in the tech recovery space, known for her brilliance, her ruthlessness in the face of corporate predators, and her almost uncanny ability to turn failing companies into powerhouses. My jaw literally dropped. "Diane?" I stammered. "You spoke to Diane Chen?" "Indeed," Robert said, almost purring now. "Turns out Diane has a particular dislike for Stonebridge's business model, and she's very interested in a company with Ironvale's foundational tech, especially now that it's free from predatory management." He winked. "She's ready to partner Ethan fund our rebuild. She sees what this company can be, what Asterisk built. This isn't just about getting Ironvale back. This is about making it a fortress they can never touch again." The room spun. The initial victory against Donovan felt almost small now. We hadn't just won a skirmish, we were on the cusp of fighting a war. And suddenly, with Diane Chen potentially in our corner, it felt like a war we could actually win. The revenge wasn't just sweet, it was about to become epic. The months that followed were a blur, but a good blur, the kind fueled by coffee, camaraderie, and the electrifying hum of creation. Diane Chen wasn't just a financial backer, she was a force of nature, a whirlwind of brilliant ideas and steely resolve. She and Robert, they were like a seasoned tag team dismantling the wreckage Stonebridge had tried to make of Ironvale and rebuilding it piece by piece, not just restoring it, but forging it into something far stronger, something with a soul. My old office, the one Donovan had so casually stripped me of, became mission control. My team, the ones who'd believed in me, who'd felt the sting of Donovan's arrogance, they were back, not just as employees, but as partners. Diane insisted on its stock options for everyone who'd weathered the storm and helped us rebuild. Imagine that. True stakes in the game. And me? I was CTO, a title that finally felt like it meant something more than just lines of code. It meant vision. It meant protecting what we'd built. The work was grueling, the hours insane, but every late night, every challenge overcome felt like another nail in the coffin of Donovan's smug pronouncements and Stonebridge's predatory ambitions. We weren't just fixing my system, we were birthing something new, something revolutionary, built on the bones of my original design but turbocharged with Meridian's resources and Diane's genius. 6 months. Half a year to drag Ironvale from the abyss and hoist it onto a brand new launchpad. The day we unveiled the new platform, Phoenix, a name Diane had suggested with a knowing glint in her eye, the energy in that auditorium was palpable. It wasn't just a product launch, it was a declaration. I stood backstage, the murmur of the crowd a dull roar through the curtain. My heart wasn't pounding with nerves, not like it used to before big presentations. This was different. It was a calm, steady thrum of certainty. I remembered the day, walking out of Ironvale with that pathetic little box of my belongings. Donovan's condescending smirk burned into my memory. Your legacy systems are holding us back, Ethan. The sheer, unadulterated gall of it. He tried to make me feel obsolete like a relic. And for a while there, in the dark, alone with my fury, maybe I'd even started to believe a sliver of it. But then Robert had called. Then Diane. Then the fight began. The curtain rose, and the lights hit me. I scanned the room, packed to the rafters with industry press, analysts, potential clients, and our team, their faces beaming. And then I saw him. Tucked away in the back, almost hidden in the shadows, was Blake Donovan. He looked smaller. The bespoke suit hung a little looser. The arrogant tilt of his head was gone, replaced by a sort of slumped resignation. Our eyes met for a fleeting second. There was no triumph in his, no challenge. Just nothing. An empty vessel. A discarded puppet, just as Robert had said. A faint smile touched my lips as I turned to the microphone. Welcome, I began, my voice clear and strong, echoing through the hall. Welcome to the rebirth of Ironvale. As I walked them through Phoenix, showcasing its power, its elegance, its impenetrable security features designed not just for performance but to repel the kind of vultures who tried to pick its carcass clean, I wasn't just talking about software. I was telling our story. The story of a company ripped apart by greed and resurrected by integrity and innovation. I saw my team, faces shining with pride. These weren't just employees, they were owners. They had poured their sweat and hope into this, and today they were reaping the rewards. Donovan didn't stay for the whole presentation. I saw him slip out before the applause reached its thunderous crescendo, a man diminished, a footnote in a story that was now far bigger than his petty treachery. Stonebridge Capital, well, they'd licked their wounds and slunk back into the shadows, their attempt to gut Ironvale a costly, embarrassing failure. Diane later told me they'd taken a significant hit to their reputation, a warning to other predators. Later that evening, champagne flowed again, but this time it tasted only of victory, clean and bright. Sarah was by my side, her eyes sparkling. Robert clapped me on the shoulder, his own eyes suspiciously moist. You did it, Ethan, he said, his voice thick with emotion. You truly did. And in that moment, looking around at the jubilant faces, at what we had built from the ashes, I realized the cold fury I'd felt had transformed. It wasn't gone, not entirely, but it had been reforged into something else. A fierce protectiveness. A profound satisfaction. The revenge wasn't just about seeing Donovan humbled or Stonebridge thwarted. It was about this. This triumph of creation over destruction. This testament to the fact that good people working together could stare down the abyss and build something magnificent on the other side. My work, my legacy, it wasn't just code anymore. It was this company. It was these people. And that was a victory sweeter than I could have ever imagined. They thought they could just snap their fingers and erase 18 years. Poof. Like my work meant nothing. But oh, they learned, didn't they? A brutal, costly lesson. And for a while, all I craved was to see them suffer. But standing there, seeing what we rebuilt, it just hit me. Real revenge, the kind that actually settles in your soul, it's not about sinking to their level. No. It's about soaring so high above the petty games that they just vanish. They become a footnote. And that night, watching my team, their faces lit up, I finally got it. True ownership isn't about a name on a deed. It's about shared respect, that burning drive towards a common goal. It's about building something real, something with heart, on a foundation so strong, so just asterisk, that no storm, no predator, can ever truly shake it. Yeah. That asterisk was the victory. Not just getting the company back. It was that feeling. That deep, unshakable knowing. That was everything.